Hello guys, this is GoldenZen. Welcome back to my studio to the GoldenEye 20th Anniversary Soundtrack Podcast. The next scene is the sauna scene where Bond, I guess, meets Xenia, where Xenia confronts Bond, and it starts with the shot, where Pierce Brosnan is swimming. I like that kind of ambient track Eric Serra has put in the original. In my opinion, it was a little too, how shall I say, a little too subtle. I just think it's a great scene, and obviously, at first, you don't see actually who's coming in. You don't know it's Xenia. You just see a figure that walks by, and I think that's kind of threatening, actually, and especially as James Bond realizes, because he's James Bond, of course, as James Bond realizes that someone just came in, and I just went for a little more in-your-face track. It's still subtle, but builds up a little more tension, I think. I really loved what Eric Serra did once Pierce Brosnan pulls Xenia into the room. He did that just, with drums. I really loved that, and I sort of copied that idea. And then later on in the scene where they start to talk, safer sex and stuff like that, there was literally like no music in the original scene, but I decided to put a little bit of stuff in there just to, to emphasize the fight a little bit. And I did that just with a few instruments. The bass line is always there because it's something that is, I think, very reminiscent of Eric Serra's music. And I want to pay tribute to that, so I left the bass line in there, which kind of constantly plays. And then you have some wild trumpet notes, and of course some synthesizer sounds. And you have some horns occasionally, flaring in the background, which just makes, I think it makes the whole scene a little crazier than it already is, And then at the end, I mean, look, this is really something really just basic and very, very, very subtle thing. But just at the end, as Pierce Brosnan aims at Xenia and he cocks the Walther PPK, you hear the reverse cymbal underlining it. And that's a cool, I just love the idea, of bringing the piece, the music, to an end with that. So he goes like, no, no, no. And you hear the reverse cymbal in the background, and on top of that, there's that weird spy chord. The next scene then is the statue scene, which was that was a case again, which was really a brilliant piece by Eric Serra. I remember watching this scene when I was a little kid, and those statues, and Eric Serra used some kind of choir samples, which occasionally is a rum, really weird stuff, and as a kid, it really terrified me. And I went for a track that was a little more present, because it had like strings playing constantly as he walks through the statue park. But I tried to implement some of those weird chords as well. I think the track is not, I like it, but it was one of those things hard to top, because Eric Serra really did an outstanding job on this scene, I think, especially the cuts on the faces of the statues and those weird choir samples. And then as he faces Trevelyan, just like in the movie, when Trevelyan comes out of that room or tomb or whatever it is, the music stops in the original, and you just hear that Eric Serra sound, that. And that's, I love that so much that I just basically recreated that as well. Then the string build up, and you see Alec. And then they talk for a little while, and then in the original, there's that piano music coming up. And I don't really know what to think about that in the original. Somehow I really like it, and somehow it feels weird, but maybe that was the idea behind it. But I went for a little more, orchestral approach with that scene. Still, maintaining those weird chords and that weird feeling of the whole piece that came beforehand, and where James Bond actually walks through the statue park. And yeah, that was that scene. And the next scene, that is one of my favorite tracks of the soundtrack. That is the tiger scene where James Bond is trapped with Natalia and the tiger, that try to get out. And the cue from the movie, also one of those elements missing on the soundtrack, is really... Basically, I heard a lot of people saying, well, it's basically a reprise of the GoldenEye Overture, but still I wanted to have that track because it does not sound the same. It's still something different. There was a question again, like with the cue when James Bond arrives in St. Petersburg. Do I want to recreate the original so people have access to it and don't have to listen to the ripped versions which are around with all the sound effects? And actually, I tried the four versions to recreate that cue that Eric Serra did there. And even though I came pretty close, I was never really satisfied with it. I mean, the track in the movie, the cue is pretty simple, and it's. I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean, I love Eric Serra's work on GoldenEye, but it was the standard GoldenEye, instruments and stuff like that. But somehow I was not satisfied, and so I said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. And then I went like again, just use some synthesizer instruments, some slight Eric Serra instruments, but with more orchestra, and I really love that scene so much. I love the scene, and I'm pretty happy with the music. With the choir shouts in the background, ho, ho. And I think this is one of the best tracks because the orchestra and the synthesizer elements, they blend together so perfectly. I just love it. And as the camera then pans to Pierce Brosnan in the chopper and the helicopter when the rockets come flying back, you hear the trumpets, and I really like that scene. And the build-up, when he hits the button and boom. And then you have like the Bond theme, still a little tension because you don't know if they're safe yet. And it's a Bond moment, and I really like that track. Okay, I see you next time. Maybe. Take care. Bye-bye.